an indicator of if an entrepreneur will be successful at an early stage or not is
Mhm.
when they're describing the problems that they're seeing about getting market traction. And the red flag that I always listen for is if a founder always says, "We're doing this amazing thing," and they just don't get it. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, let me just tell you, they're the ones writing the check. So somebody doesn't get it, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's them.
CEOs spend their days building their businesses, and strategic questions often get pushed to the nights and weekends when they finally have time and space to think about the bigger picture. I call that CEO pajama time. I'm Sari Kakenoff, the CEO of AITSA, where I work alongside health tech leaders at exactly those moments. Come behind the scenes with me to learn from successful CEOs about the critical decisions and inflection points that shape their companies. Welcome, everyone, to the CEO Pajama Time podcast. I'm excited to host Drew Schiller, the CEO and co-founder of Validic. To start us off, can you tell us more about Validic today?
Absolutely. So we are the largest platform for connecting personal health data into the healthcare system. So what we have, we launched in 2013. We have the largest health IoT platform. So we're bringing in all of the data from wearables and in-home health devices, health apps in the phone. We standardize and normalize that across over 700 disparate sources into a common API. And then that is then brought into healthcare for a variety of different use cases. So think about direct-to-consumer applications where you're engaging people in healthy activities. That's actually even increasing now more as you see use cases around, what OpenAI is doing and Google Health Coach and things like that. We also
Amazon has
support
a new one too, I saw.
Amazon just launched
Yeah.
theirs. That's right. As well as more of clinical use cases. So think about remote patient monitoring or monitoring people for short-term acute conditions, or if you're even looking at transitions of care or hospital to home type of transitions where you're just looking to follow somebody in the home. So we really span that entire
Uh-huh.
spectrum of kind of healthy well-being and engagement all the way through to the chronically ill, really working
Yep.
to help somebody improve their health toward the end of life.
So take us back to the beginning. What was the burning problem that made you decide, gosh, we got to start a company to solve this?
Yeah, yeah. So my co-founder Ryan and I were best friends in college. We're both
Nice.
very entrepreneurial. In fact, Validic was the first office commute I ever had because before that I was always just working for myself and starting companies. And same with Ryan, he also is very entrepreneurial. So we had often talked about starting a business together. And in 2010, he came to me with an idea around wellness, which actually was around, if you remember, this is a wild time capsule moment, but if you remember, this was 2010. So on TV, one of the most popular shows was The Biggest Loser. And then there was also a company that was really popular at the time called Healthy Wages, where people would be in these weight loss challenges and get paid money
Okay.
to lose weight as a health incentive.
Yep.
And Ryan had read an article actually in Time Magazine about how there was a YMCA that ran a healthy weight loss challenge for
Uh-huh.
its members, and it was really successful. And he's like, "Hey, I think we could build a solution out of this. Are you interested?" And at the time, I had my own company that was doing software development, and then I had another potential venture with somebody that I was starting to explore, and then I had this opportunity and ultimately just decided that an opportunity to build something with a best friend is just doesn't come along very often. So really leaned into that, and we started built I built a prototype. We started going to market with that. We raised a small seed round, or friends and family round in August 2011, and went full time. And at the time, the company was called Scale Down Challenge, and it was just
Oh, wow.
it was
Okay.
wild, yeah, like early phase.
But what was the initial thesis? It was this data connection, or what
It
was
was
it?
yeah, no, the initial thesis had nothing to do with health data, which is really wild. The initial thesis was that we would sell weight loss challenge software to gyms and corporate wellness
Oh,
programs just to so
okay.
for gyms, it was around member engagement and retention, and for corporate wellness is around employee engagement and just healthy activities. We actually got a little bit of early traction, not much, but from there we actually got into a startup accelerator in Dallas in 2012 called Tech Wildcatters. And it was while we were there that we realized, okay, like the markets for these two markets are not very big for what we have to offer. We need to expand um our services offering in order to really make it a big market. and selling into health gyms and health clubs was just really difficult. Very fragmented market, unsophisticated buyers,
Mhm.
etc. While
I mean, this
meanwhile,
was probably before you had all the gym roll-ups too, like, it wasn't
oh
like
yeah,
Crunch Fitness
early
everywhere, like
days,
yeah.
early days, and then there was the large self-insured employer market, and that's where we started to get some really good feedback on, hey, like what you guys are talking about is really interesting, but we talked like one of the nice things about going with through a startup accelerator is you get access to people you wouldn't otherwise have. So like the head of corporate well-being for all of Southwest Airlines, was like, hey, I like you guys and what you're working on, but I need more programming options because I have a bunch of different problems. I have my corporate people who have one set of problems. I have my baggage handlers who have like
Mm,
musculoskeletal. I've got my frontline staff, and that's like a lot of smoking cessation issues. I got like people up in the air. They've got their own, like, everybody had like different issues. They need a bunch of different programming options. So that's when we were kind of scratching our head, like, how do we accommodate all of the different programming options? We're just two guys and a dream. Like, we can't build all this stuff. And I remember one night, it was like midnight on a Friday night, and we were just kind of talking about this problem. And I was like, okay, so I can't build a better, step tracker than Fitbit, or a better running app than Runkeeper, or a better nutrition app than MyFitnessPal. Like, what do we do about that? And then finally we were just like, wait, what if we just integrate all those and like let those be our
mhm,
programming options? So that
yeah.
was that was kind of the first unlock that really started us down the path of what ultimately a year later became Validic.
Okay, cool, so then you ended up, like, starting a new company to be
Yeah,
Validic, essentially?
more or less. I mean, we didn't, like, from a corporate perspective, we didn't start a new company. Like, those the
Uh,
seed the, or the friends and family investors who were with us from the beginning came with
yeah.
us. They're still still on the cap table.
Okay,
And
so what is the company name if I were to, like, contract with you all? What does it say on the doc?
oh, now it's Validic Inc. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
it went through a few different iterations. I'm not gonna lie, but
Uh,
yeah. And the way that we came up with Validic actually was interesting because the initial concept was to bring all these programming options into our app, and then we were
mm,
gonna bring that out to corporate wellness folks. And so we built an early concept to that. But two things happened. One is the first thing we tackled was doing integrations, and that ended up, like, to the different consumer health apps and devices. That ended up being so much more work to build and manage than what we had anticipated. We are like, "Oh, wow, that's hard." So that was the first thing that surprised us. The second thing was once we took an early version of the concept out to market and started to show it to potential customers, they all said, "Hey, look, this is really interesting, but you're gonna be competing in a space with," at the time it was like Shape Up and Virgin Pulse and
mhm,
Limeade and all these companies, which at the now Shape Up has, or sorry, now Virgin Pulse, which is now Personify Health, has
right.
acquired almost all of these. They're still a
Yeah,
customer of ours today, but
yeah.
they rolled up the whole market. But at the time, it was very fragmented, and these are all companies that had raised a bunch of money, and they were like, "Look, no offense, but you guys are not gonna have a foothold in the market anytime soon." Like,
Mhm,
these bigger companies have a much larger, sales team, etcetera. But what none of them have is the device data from the consumer health apps and devices you guys have. What if you just licensed that? And so we heard that enough times, and I remember we just got off of 2 meetings in California, in the Bay Area, on the same day, back to back. We were like, in the meeting, we were like, "Okay," so, like, they were a little cool
yeah.
on the what we were talking about, and then we were like, "Well, what if we just licensed you the data?" And they were like, "Oh, that could be interesting." And so we started, and so, like, as we were having
Mhm,
those conversations on the way back, driving up the 101 back to our friend's house we were staying at, I remember we were like, "Okay, we gotta pivot. Like, this is
yeah.
this is pretty
That's,
clear."
that's really cool that you got that, like, kinda strong market signal. I'm curious then, how did you figure out what the business model was? Like, at the time, you're talking to employers, so you coulda just sold it to employers, but
Yeah.
then you sort of how did you figure that out, and what did you do?
Yeah. So, right. That's a great question because we were trying to sell to employers, but ultimately we ended up needing to sell to their vendors, which was a different model entirely. So, what we did was we had actually bought a marketing email blast through WellCoa, which is the Wellness Council of America,
Uh-huh.
and that goes out to, I don't know, 20 plus thousand corporate wellness people. And so we had bought that email blast, and I remember this was going out the first week of April, and it was only in like late February, early March that we realized, oh, like we need to try a pivot here. And so
Uh-huh.
in that amount of time, we were like, well, we have this Welcoa email. Maybe we should try a new positioning message with it, since we know we're probably gonna need to pivot and
Yeah.
it's no cost, right? So we came up with the name Validic, we designed the logo, we created the website, the whole thing in like a week or 10 days,
Oh, wow.
and created a video that we had these ads that went out in the Welcoa email blast. It was like a world of mobile health data, one simple connection or something like that. And when people clicked on that, it took them to a video that explained it was actually a video targeting the corporate wellness people,
Mhm.
but also their vendors, and it was basically
Yeah.
like it was almost like a pharmaceutical ad, like, "Hey, you're creating all this engagement, and now people are using these health apps on their own. You as a corporate wellness executive need to get credit for that. Validic
Mhm.
can help you get credit for that health engagement that you're creating. So ask your corporate wellness vendor if Validic is right for you." Like, that's it was like it
Yeah.
was it was a really
Okay.
it was super effective. We got, I think, 22 demo requests that first day,
Wow.
which is more than more interest than we'd ever gotten. And in fact, the second demo we ever did is still a client of ours today. The first contract we ever signed was about 60 days later, and that
Oh,
came
wow.
from that first group of wellness vendors that came through that. I mean, the first demo we ever did actually is still a partner of ours. I mean, we
Yeah.
were like, just we hit the market at the right time where we had spent so much time learning about the problem that we just knew how to articulate our message
Mhm.
in a way that people would hear it. And so it was kind of like the feeling of product market fit where people are showing up and they're like, "Oh my god, like my hair is on fire and you guys are the only
Yeah.
bucket of water I can find."
That's really cool. So, essentially, like, they were, like, giving out Fitbits or whatever, and then they were not knowing what was happening with the people using them. Is that
Yeah.
essentially what was going on? Okay.
Yeah,
And this
that's
would
right.
help
Yeah.
you track it. And then you would basically relied on them to say, "Oh, I'm working with whomever," and they introduced you to those vendors, essentially.
Well, what happened was some of them got referred, but a lot of them, the vendors themselves were actually on the email list as well. And so the
Okay,
vendors
so then they were
themselves
like, "Oh,
actually,
that's cool. I can get this
yeah.
feature." That's
And
yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, one of the interesting things I learned, that's like a hint at product market fit that I never would have known if it hadn't happened to us, is that multiple times we would get on the phone with somebody and they would say, "I had this idea and blah blah blah."
Mm,
And I'm like, "Okay." Like, once people are like, "Oh, you guys are like, this is a thing I've already thought about." And like,
yeah.
that
Like,
it's
"I
like,
want
"Oh,
this, no one's
they."
selling it." "Oh, you're
Yes,
selling it, great." Okay, yeah,
exactly.
that's cool. So, I'm curious though, they're about 2 years, I wasn't exactly counting, but it seemed like about 2 years from when you started till you're like, "Okay, this is working," and became Validic and it unlocks. So, how'd you survive all that time? Like, did you feel like, "We should give up, and this isn't working," and, like, how did you sort of muscle through that, and then why did you muscle through that?
So it's the right question, and knowing when to continue and when to give up is a really hard question to answer. I will say this, whether we were too smart or too stupid, I can tell you what we to realize we should give up. I'll tell you what we did. We committed to ourselves that as long as we could we pay ourselves $3,000 a month. And we committed to ourselves that as long as we had enough cash in the bank to continue paying ourselves $3,000 a month, we would continue working at it and we would give it our all. And
Oh, wow.
it was just a commitment that we made to each other, and our we had family at the time. Like, Ryan actually had a kid already and one on the way at the time.
Mhm.
My wife had just completed grad school and was doing a postdoc, which is not very much like
Yeah.
we were not living well. but,
So,
but
okay, so what
yeah.
gave you the conviction to do that? Was it because you believed the problem was like there was an opportunity, this market was emerging, or was it more like we want to work together and we'll figure something out? Like, I'm curious what made you, or
Yeah, it's
just
the latter.
pigheadedness? I don't know.
Yeah, it's the latter. This is the thing. So we were always bought in on the vision of building something together, but
Uh-huh.
not so bought in on like we uniquely have the idea that's going to
Uh-huh.
work, right? And there's a lot of companies that have gone through that transition, right? If you think about, Spotify didn't start as Spotify, and Twitter, now X, like didn't start as Twitter, right? Like they started as completely different companies that created something as part of what they were doing that ended up being the thing, which is what happened for us,
Yeah.
And so I think that being open to the market feedback and, taking, like we always say at Validic, we take our work seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. Like we,
Uh-huh.
like we really work hard, but we also want to listen. And it's something I've actually really found to be an indicator of if an entrepreneur will be successful at an early stage or not is
Mhm.
when they're describing the problems that they're seeing about getting market traction. And the red flag that I always listen for is if a founder always says, "We're doing this amazing thing," and they just don't get it. And I'm like,
Mm.
"Okay, let me just tell you, they're the ones writing the check. So somebody doesn't get it, but I don't
Yeah.
think it's them." Right? Like like
Yeah.
it's what's really important here is you understand that like if they're going to write a check, they have to be bought into this, on it from at
Yeah.
least from an enterprise sales perspective. And that was something that, we always would just take the feedback really directly like, okay, they're not hearing what we think we're telling them. So either we're not telling them in a way they can hear it or we're not articulating a real problem. And so we just had to keep asking, well, okay, if this isn't it, what is the thing? Right? Like
Yeah.
if you could push an easy button and make one thing go away, what is that? Like,
Uh-huh.
just help us understand the real problem so we can pick it up and look at it in three dimensions. And I feel like that's where a lot of times founders they get in love with an idea and they feel like they've solved the problem, but it's not the problem for anybody. It might be a problem, but it's not the
Yeah.
problem that's going to unlock something for their customers.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also I was talking to a founder recently, and they had, like, a pretty good thing, but it wasn't anybody's top 10 problem, in my personal opinion. So it's kinda like, yeah, people probably say that this sucks, but, like, is it the thing that's keeping them up at night? And that's another thing is really figuring out, like, okay, what's the thing that people are gonna be willing to pay for and, like, get you involved in their company and all of that for, and not just like, "Well, they said they didn't like this, though."
100%. That's exactly right. Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, so now fast forward, we've got a company, it's up and running, you have the product because you worked through it for yourselves. Were there any other like big inflection points where you had to change market or change customer or change something as you grew?
Yeah, big time actually. So we started in the corporate wellness space, which is now kind of you'd call maybe more corporate well-being. It's sort
Hmm.
of gone through some iterations, but again, at the time, there were when we launched to the market in 2013, there were dozens and dozens of these vendors that were all well funded. And what we started to see in 2015 was two things. One is that we had almost universally sold to the market. Like we had
Uh,
definitely touched everybody in that market. And so either they had bought us, they were in our pipeline, or they had decided not to buy us. Like it was like those were
yeah.
the that was it. Like there was no more market for corporate wellness. And then the other thing we saw was we kind of saw the writing on the wall of there's going to be mass consolidation because that
Hmm.
market's not big enough to support dozens and dozens of vendors.
Yeah.
It's big enough to maybe support like a handful of good ones, and that ended up being true. Which the big players in the space now are Personify Health and WebMD Health Services. Um, and then the major payers have their own
Yep.
offerings as well. But, so what we realized at the time was, okay, this market is not gonna work for us. The other thing that we were doing at the time was we were selling a lot of contracts to, early stage, venture-backed companies.
Hmm.
And
And
also
then
in
they were
20
going bust.
yeah, that's right. Also in the 2015, 2016 timeframe, there was a dry up in this was the first downturn in digital health
Yeah.
capital, and all these companies couldn't raise money, so they were going out of business. Our churn increased, we weren't getting new pipeline from that group. So we were like, okay, these were the two markets that we were serving. this is not sustainable. So, we need to go up market to health systems and health plans and really start to and potentially pharma, which that market ended up not being ready for what we were offering for a number of reasons. But specifically health systems and health plans, we identified a big opportunity to grow into that area. But we also knew that we needed to improve our offerings in order to support them.
Uh-huh.
So we really invested heavily in doing that. And so the first thing we did was a lot of customer interviews. I mean, hundreds of customer interviews with health system and health plan executives to understand what the real problem was.
Uh-huh.
They ended up being kind of two different problems. So for health plans, it was, how do we create an engaging member experience where our large self-insured employers are going to feel like, they want to keep buying
Uh-huh.
our solution. And then for the health systems, well, and then also on the health plan side, they needed all that data to tie back in seamlessly into their broader data warehouses and
Uh-huh.
like so it can be combined with like claims data, et cetera. So they needed that deep enterprise integration, which fortunately is something we're good at. And then for health systems, what we heard consistently was in order for healthcare providers, the physicians and nurses to use the data, it has to be available in the clinical workflow. You have
Yep.
to be able to surface what's important so that they're not just responding and trying to review all of the data. And then you have to visualize those insights so that they
Yep.
can just really quickly know what they need to do next. And so that took us down a very different path because we needed to create EMR integrations and
Uh-huh.
we need to create a concept of like a clinical workflow enablement solution, really a whole
Which is
application.
very different than
Very
the
different.
business
So
you were in. Yeah.
yeah, so we went from being an API only company to now for any clinical workflow, we actually now built an application layer um that deeply integrates into Epic and Oracle Health
Uh-huh.
and at that time Cerner and other EMRs in order to be able to really enable people to create programs around the data and
Uh-huh.
all that. Ultimately, just to kind of fast forward a few years back, we actually, in order to further that offering, we actually even acquired a logistics and patient enablement company.
To send devices to people's
Yeah.
homes?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We realized that all of our clients need the ability to get devices in people's hands. And because Validic is the company that supports any device and any configuration, we actually had a real hard time partnering with a logistics company that
Because
could
they were each
support all the
siloed.
different
Yeah.
things. And so
Mhm.
they were all like, "Well, tell us the one Validic thing that we're going to ship." And we're like, "No, no, no. Like it's going to be different for every client and maybe even different setups within a client." And everyone was like, "This is very complicated and really expensive." And we were like, "It doesn't have to be." So we actually acquired a logistics company a few years back that's been a fantastic um,
Huh.
a fantastic offering for us. It enables us to be really flexible with clients. Enables us to iterate quickly with them. We can deliver our total package solution at a really good price. We have even better relationships with our device manufacturing partners now because in addition to the data, now they're also seeing us as a distribution channel
Uh-huh.
and we're able to support, again, from well-being all the way through to the chronic and acute conditions. We're able to support this huge
Yeah.
breadth of programs, and we can help people get on board in the programs, and we can provide tech support, and we can kind of be that, you know,
Yeah.
that everything but clinical services company to support these remote care type of
Yeah.
programs.
Okay, so take me into that decision to buy a distribution company because that is like a very, very different business model. So I'm curious, like when you were there, you realize like, okay, we're missing this thing, we're having trouble. I mean, that doesn't still to me make an obvious leap to like, let's go buy a logistics company. So how did you make that decision? What inputs? What were the trade-offs you were weighing? And then how'd you like find the right company?
Yeah. So to be really direct, it was not a simple decision for me at all, especially because I'm a tech CEO
Yeah.
first and foremost. Like I was the founding CTO of Validic. Like my background is pure technology. If there is technology that can solve the problem, I want to use technology. And so I was really interested in partnering first with
Uh-huh.
and we were looking at a lot of out of the box partnerships because there are a number of kind of healthcare focused logistics companies out
Uh-huh.
there. The problem is again, they were inflexible and none of them really had the scale to where we could get
Uh-huh.
any type of good economies around
Yeah.
pricing and like, every single thing that we needed to change for a customer required a change order on their side,
Yeah.
which is expensive and took time. It's just very complex.
Yeah.
So we were talking with AWS about logistics, like because
Huh.
they were at the time they ended up they might do it now, I don't know, but at the time they had been considering doing healthcare logistics, and so we were talking to them
Ugh.
about our specific challenge and potentially building an offering with them. They ended up not going down that path of corporate wide. They
Uh-huh.
decided not to do that. And we were talking with, directly with like UPS and FedEx about potentially doing an offering. One thing I learned that I don't know if you ever knew this, but like when you order a customized thing from Apple from that's like shipped from FedEx, like you order like your own icon or whatever on a box
Yeah.
of AirPods,
Yeah.
FedEx actually prints that.
Oh, really? I
I
did
didn't
not
even
know
know,
that.
like, I didn't know that. Like FedEx prints
Yeah.
that and
I've
then
got
ships
my
it to you.
little,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So that's one thing I learned. I was like, oh, so you guys can do more types of things. So like, let's talk about what that is. But ultimately, what it came down to was we felt like in order to really deliver the service in a relatively immature market, like this market's still figuring out where it's going to go, we had to own the whole stack. And this was actually
Mhm.
credit to there's a great book everybody knows about, The Innovator's Dilemma,
Yeah.
by Clay Christensen. There's a great second book to that called The Innovator's Solution. And
Oh, okay.
in the
Never heard of
innovators,
it.
yeah, yeah, it's really good. And in the innovator's solution, what they describe is that in an early market, it's really important for a company to own the full stack of a delivery service
Mhm.
because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to adjust in real time to customer needs. Now, once the market matures and you understand like what different customers are going to actually use and need, like then you can start to
Mm.
piece
Yeah.
part out and outsource and all that. Now, side note, a big part of the innovator solution is like don't outsource your core competency. You like know what you
Yeah.
do best and then know what you can outsource that's commodity, but in the early days it really makes a compelling argument for owning that full stack, and that was ultimately what spoke to us is like, oh, okay, in order for us to truly deliver the whole service in a way that we know we can meet the needs of our customers, we have to own it now, not forever
Mhm.
necessarily, but now.
Right.
And that has proved to be really true. And the way we acquired the company was that there was an asset on the market that had known about for a while. We actually passed on it for it initially. They came to us
Mhm.
with the opportunity for us to acquire us. We had not yet made the decision we were going to acquire it, and so we said, "Hey, really interesting, but not right now." Fast forward about 4 or 5 months later, we decided, okay, we actually think we need to own this, and we reached back out and they said, "Hey, look, that sounds great. We've not found another buyer. We're very interested. We did, kind of take a look at another company or two just to make sure that we weren't,
Yeah.
being having any bias or whatever, and making sure we did our diligence. But the company that we acquired is actually we acquired it out of Cox Communications,
Mm.
the cable company, and it
Yeah.
ended up being a really, really good acquisition for us and for that team because that team, while they were under Cox, they had a lot of really great things, but they didn't. Cox doesn't have a very big healthcare services business, and
Mhm.
so there wasn't anyone else like any other business units inside of Cox for this team to align with. So they
Mhm.
were thrilled when we acquired them because now they aligned with
Yeah.
a bigger, healthcare services company. Cox, got equity in my company as part of it. So, there's
Yeah.
a win-win there. Ended up being a really good partnership going forward that, we're thrilled with, our customers are thrilled with.
Yeah.
That team has been really inspiring to see what they do on a daily basis. Like when you have a boots on the ground team that is really committed to delivering on a service, and they're there from
Uh-huh.
a mission perspective to do it for patients every day.
Yeah.
Like, it's truly inspiring for the rest of us who are on the
Yeah.
software side, and so it's been
Yeah.
a really, really strong partnership.
Yeah. That's really cool. I like that concept of like the early days own it, but it sounds like you still own it. So you still see value in having the end to
I
end at
I would
that
argue it's
point.
still the early days. The market's still trying to understand how we're going to be shifting to remote care, and by the way, I
Uh-huh.
think that there are no good answers to this yet. Like, I think it's rapidly evolving. So there's, the certainly there was RPM code expansion that happened on the remote care side for this year,
Yeah.
which is a great market signal. There's the advanced primary care, the APCM codes, which I
Yeah.
think are really exciting. There's the new access model that CMS came out with for through the Center for
Yeah.
Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, which is, I think, really interesting and
And also the
designed.
rural health
Yeah,
innovation
the
stuff.
rural health innovation. I mean, there are so much activity, but
Mhm.
all of this is activity. It's not yet a strong signal of like this is the thing that we're definitely going to do as a market, right? And
Yeah.
so like we're still trying to figure out and iterate in that. And I think that the strong thing is that we have clients and partners in all of those different models.
Yeah.
And we're able to support all of them because we own the whole stack, and we can iterate, and
Yeah.
we can adjust how we price, and we can adjust our model to how they're receiving remuneration,
Mhm.
which I think at this early stage is really key.
So you and I have talked about this before where in a lot of startups strategy is like a dirty word, but in your case I think you view it a little bit differently. So I'm curious like how you think about it, how you implement that kind of work with your team.
Yeah,
Share with us a bit about that.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that so in the early days, and I'm talking about first just starting, every conversation you kind of have is strategy. Like you're just trying to figure out
Yeah.
something. And then once you get going, you kind of fall into a routine, and hopefully it's all up and to the right and you're off to the races and you never have to think about it again. That never happens. It just doesn't work
Yeah.
like that. Like, growth does not look like up and to the right. It's more like, this.
Mhm.
Like, it's just kinda
Yeah.
it's just how it is. And so, it was actually back, this was a number of years ago now, maybe 8 years ago or so. I actually read an article, in Harvard Business Review about how little companies spend actually talking about strategy, and I don't remember the specifics of it, but it was measured in, like, an hour-ish per month. I mean, it was like companies just don't talk about corporate strategy when, like, that's the most important thing for them. And so, as part of that, I implemented two things. One is, a weekly strategy meeting where my, senior leadership gets together and we have topics to discuss that are more strategic in nature. Like, we try to keep tactics out of it. Like, there might be a
Yeah.
tactical result, right? But these are strategic questions like, how do we want to approach the market around this? Or, hey, this
Uh-huh.
customer came to us with this question. If we did this, there are there are big implications around that, right? Like,
Yeah.
strategically, that takes us in a different direction. Or strategically, we have to use resources to support something we weren't doing before, right?
Yeah.
Like, these are big questions that should not be taken lightly. And I think oftentimes startups back themselves into a corner where they just start saying yes to all these things. And then
Yeah.
they kind of have an unsustainable business at the end
Yeah.
of the day. And so the other big thing that we did was we set aside one full day a month for that team to just talk about strategy, and it's extremely rewarding. It's really fun. We talk through meaty topics, and we always know that we're on the same page with where the
Yeah.
market is going. We're on the same page with how we're executing. We're on the same page with why we're doing something. We're on the same page with why we're not doing something. It's a
Yeah.
really important alignment, and I think that it's often missed for smaller companies because we're just too busy executing. And if you
Yeah.
don't intentionally set that time aside and protect it, then people will just be making decisions on the edge, and they might accidentally be creating strategy without realizing it. And
Yeah.
that's not a great position to be in. So the
Yeah.
last thing I'll say is that by doing this and by effectively communicating this, what we talk about to the rest of the company, allow everybody else to have autonomy around the decisions they make because they understand, hey, these are the guardrails. This is what we can agree to. This is what we can agree to. And like, this is why. And so, they kind of know the answers as they're out in the
Yep.
field. So they can be far more autonomous, which gives them a much higher job satisfaction. They feel like they're able to
Yeah.
do their best work. And they also don't feel like, uh-oh, like, can I do this? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. So it
Yeah.
allows the whole company to go a lot faster from that
Yeah.
perspective.
That's cool. So tell me a little, like, tactically, how is this one day a month? That feels like a lot. So I'm curious how you structure it. Is it in person? Is it virtual? Do you plan topics? Do people just show up? Like, how does that work? Is it a Friday? Is it a Monday? You
Yeah,
know?
it's usually a Monday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we actually we have done it a variety of different ways. We've done it on Mondays, we've done it on Thursdays, we've done it on Fridays. Friday is the worst day. Um, we,
Everyone's trying to like check off the to-do list for the week.
Yeah, yeah. We found for us Monday works best. Wednesday was also not great. It's just like kind of right in the middle of the week and it bifurcated the week weirdly.
Yeah.
We're a fully virtual team. So we used to be fully on site. Before COVID, everybody was
Mm,
located in Durham, North
mm,
Carolina. And once COVID hit, we started going fully virtual. You never went back. And so, my team now is distributed across all four time zones that
mhm,
attend that meeting. It would be impossible to do it in person monthly. So we do meet virtually. There is a meeting agenda set up ahead of time. We actually use a Slack canvas so we can keep track of like what those
uh-huh,
meeting topics are. And then we check it off, and sometimes there's materials for us to do pre-reads on, and we
mhm,
can have somebody send, or whoever's the topic owner can send that around. Sometimes it's just something that everyone already has context on, but we just need to
mhm.
further the discussion. But generally speaking, these are not status updates. Like it's not,
Yeah, yeah.
oh hey, let me walk you through the latest on this. If there's anything like that, that's a send ahead. Like send ahead,
Mhm.
see where we're at, and then once we're in the meeting, we
Yeah.
can all discuss what's going on. Um,
And
yeah.
who manages the agenda? Like, who decides what the topic is? You or people can, like, nominate things?
Yeah, so anybody can add to the agenda,
Mhm.
which is great. And then it's usually myself and my COO, Brian, who ultimately end up, kind of walking through the agenda
Yeah.
and managing it. So, yeah.
Hmm. And it's a whole day of just talking.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, typically it's, 6 hours.
Mhm.
We'll sometimes do if there's a lot going on, like, with the business and, people have other client meetings or whatever, sometimes we'll do 4 hours. We try to
Yeah.
make it 6. When we did it on site in person, um, I actually really love the in-person experience too, but when
Yeah.
we did it on site in person, what we would do is we would have breakfast brought in with coffee. We'd
Yeah.
start early at, like, 8 o'clock, and then we'd take a good break for lunch and with no work topics during lunch.
Mm.
And then we would work until 4. And then at 4 o'clock, we would knock off and go next door to a bar and have happy hour together. So
Oh,
just
wow.
kind of like, and the
Yeah.
conversation would kind of spill into that a little bit, but we'd
Yeah.
have some camaraderie built in. So, like it was a whole day, but also we tried to make it fun and something
Yeah.
that you'd want
Yeah.
to look forward to.
So, actually, that's a good segue into so you're fully virtual. Do you ever get together as a team now? Or do you have
We get
how
together
do
as
you do that?
small groups, but
Okay.
we don't get we've actually never gotten the whole company together, which is
Okay.
something I wanna do. It's actually the most requested thing from our whole team. We
Mm.
have, um, we have about 40-ish percent, 45% of us in North Carolina. Still, most of us are in the Raleigh-Durham area.
Mhm.
But, we have a pretty distributed team. I mean, like everybody
Yeah.
else is pretty distributed. And then we have 10-ish folks in the DC, Virginia area, because that's where our warehouse
Okay.
is. But,
Yeah.
but we've actually never gotten together as a whole company. We do get together in groups. So we
Okay.
use conferences, and other things like that to get people together
Yeah.
into meetings. And
Mm-hmm.
it's effective for that. Like the engineers will sometimes get together for their teams with
Yep.
their product leader, and it's a fun thing. But by and large, while everybody agrees getting in person is really nice, like on the day to day, our whole company prefers to work remote and have more of what I call like a work life integration, where it's like you're
Mm-hmm.
not one person outside of work and another person at work. Like
Yeah.
you're a whole person, and like you can have the flexibility. We have core hours for our company where we expect you to be online during those times
Mm-hmm.
and available. But outside of that, our policies like get shit done. And if you need to,
Yep.
take a personal thing or do something with your kids, or
Yep.
you know, go, take off
Have a
early for
snow day.
vacation, or yeah, have a snow day, which my kids have today. Yeah, like all kinds of things. Like,
Yeah.
we just understand that life happens. And so
Yep.
really we just expect people to just get done what they need to get done, what they commit to. Mhm.
Yeah. So that culture question. So you and your buddy started the company. You clearly were working hard in the beginning. I think you were saying there was like a midnight on Friday discussion in the beginning. So how did you so firstly, like how much of the culture, kind of just happened versus was like something you planned out, and how did that evolve over the years?
Yeah. So initially the culture was very organic and just happened. We tried to be intentional about it in the early days. We tried to write down what we wanted the culture to be, and it kind of worked. But what we really found was that a top-down kind of founder-led culture, while there was some positive aspects of it, um, our world experience did not map necessarily to our team's experience
Mhm.
as we started to grow. So, like, once we got to about 40 or 50 people, it was just like the culture that Ryan and I were trying to create was not the same for them as what we had thought it
Mm.
would be for us. So, and for understandable, like we as founders, would put in far more time and far more effort, and all, like people talk about founder mode and all that, and
Yeah.
I don't know, like it just isn't practical. And nor was it really. Like, we were trying to build a company where people could come in and feel like they're doing the best work that they could, like the best work of their lives, and feel supported in doing that. But as part of that, you need to feel like you're supported elsewhere in your life too. And
Mhm.
so there was a really big moment for our culture in 2018 when one of our team members, she's an early employee, had an idea of, hey, for this upcoming, we do quarterly kickoffs where we get the whole company together.
Mm.
Now it's virtual, used to be on site, right? For our upcoming quarterly kickoff, why don't we ask the team to update our corporate values? And so, our COOs, our chief product officer at the time, like partnered up with her, and they put together a whole plan. And so, what we broke into small groups, and everybody kind of wrote down like what are the
Yep.
things that you value about working here and that you feel like are important about Validic. And then from that, there was a so we had a bunch of different words and ideas and all of this. And from that, we had a volunteer group, which I was explicitly not a part of, that met and reviewed what everybody had to say, and ultimately codified all of the things into four core values. And those values that they came up with were, I think, very representative of what the company actually was, not what Ryan and I
Yeah.
aspirationally wanted the company to be. And we really leaned into that. And as a result, like those still today are things that, we hold each other accountable to. If we feel like what's really remarkable is it created a great work environment in person, and it remained creating because they were core values. Like those core, like how we do
Yep.
them might be a little different virtually, but they remain the same as we went virtual. So
And what are they?
yeah. So so it's a quiz.
Hopefully you know them.
I do. So um so one is purpose, like we innovate
Mhm.
with a purpose and we're passionate. One is freedom, so we
Mm.
trust others, and and to do their work, and we lead with trust. One is authenticity, which
Mhm.
is like bring your own flavor, basically, like
Yep.
be authentic, be you. And then last is empathy. So we want to
Mhm.
have empathy for ourselves and for others. So we call we what we say is we borrow this from radical candor, but we care personally and challenge directly.
Mm.
And so those are the core values, and it's something that I've tried to, by the way, have an acronym for them, but there's no good
Mm.
acronym. So that there's like an ongoing joke inside. Like I'm like, it's PEEF. PEEF is our is our acronym. And you're like, no, that's not a thing. Like you can't just.
Yeah.
But
You have to add a few words that start with vowels, and then you can do it.
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, but when I say PEEF, I remember it's like purpose, empathy, authenticity, and freedom. So it does.
Yeah.
I can't remember it that way, but
FIPA? FIPA maybe.
I
I don't
don't
know.
know.
Anyway. So then I'm to take a different train of thought, and you can keep me honest here, but you talked in the beginning about the other companies that were very heavily venture backed, and you guys were sort of more living on the shoestring. I think at some point you did raise venture capital, but I'm curious to understand. I think for a company of your vintage, you probably raised less than a lot of other companies have. So I'm curious to hear what that journey was like and what the decision points were on that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've raised about 35 million, which, we've been in business now for 12 years, so doing pretty well, like as Validic. And you're right, like we intentionally have not raised as much. And the reason is twofold. One is that in the early days, when we did Series A in 2014, we did Series B in 2015. We actually what happened was, because we kinda got a tiger by the tail when we first launched, Series A happened very quickly and Series B happened 9 months later.
Oh, wow.
And we realized that was actually right before that market shift happened that I was telling you about, where the corporate wellness market kinda
Yep.
dried up and the venture market kinda dried up, and we realized at that time, we are like, "Oh, we got a lot of money, and let's just not burn through this, because, like, the market's a little funky. We
Yep.
need to make an adjustment in our business. Let's be really prudent and thoughtful here." So, we kinda went from our burn was pretty significant. I remember at one point we were burning, $500,000 a month, and we had about 6 million in the bank. And I'm like, well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see how this goes. Like, and so, we cut back our spending. We became a lot more thoughtful around how we would run the business from then on. And we really just managed cash and worked really well with customers to just, put in place,
Yep.
strong cash collections and a real business model, and focus on like
Mhm.
unit economics. And I mean, we
Yeah.
just turned it into a real business, which was not the in vogue at the time.
Yeah.
So when like the market really turned in like 22,
2
23,
or 3,
like
yeah.
we were already doing it. We were already careful. Like we were,
Yeah.
we
So
we
did you
were
have to downsize at that time? You had to let people go
we
to reduce the
did
burn rate?
yeah, so we did have a small riff in the end of 23,
Mm.
which is not great. A lot of companies had to do it. We tried to minimize the impact as much as we
Mhm.
could. There was um, there was definitely some positives that came out of it, just from an efficiency perspective. Like we
Yeah.
had kind of to rethink how we did some things. But certainly, like we've always because we have always run pretty lean and we've always been really thoughtful. We don't have any roles where I'd be like, "Oh, that will have no impact if we lose that person."
Right.
Like, that doesn't, because we already actively do that. We already
Right.
actively try to, be thoughtful about which roles we hire and why. And so, that was definitely a little painful, but it wasn't, um,
Yeah.
we I think we went about it in the right way. We explained why to our team.
Yeah.
We were very upfront um about what we did. We told
Mhm.
everybody who stayed with us, we also told them at a high level, not details, but
Yeah.
like how we took care of the people who we did have to let go.
Yeah.
and that why we did it in this way, and why they could feel confident we wouldn't have to do it
Mhm.
again, and then
Yeah.
what we would need to do to ensure that happened, that we don't, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so we've been really thoughtful um, about how we raise capital. It also makes that a lot easier when we think about future financings, or
Mhm.
potential exit opportunities and things like that, because if you're a company that's raised $100 million, and you're at the revenue that
Yeah.
doesn't support that, like, that becomes a real difficult conversation. So it's
Yeah.
fortunately something that we hopefully won't have to
Yeah.
do.
That makes sense. All right. So as we wrap up here, two last questions. The first one is myth busting. What do people tell CEOs or founders that you think is just BS?
Yeah, I think one thing that I hear, especially right now, is because like AI is out there, and Claude Code is incredible. I'm hearing more about, like, hey, just build it and get it out there.
Uh huh.
And I I think that there's like that's a fun way to hobby.
Yeah.
um, I don't think that that's a good way to build a business. Like, I still
Mm-hmm.
think the best way to build a business is to really deeply understand the problem in the market. Otherwise, you're basically playing the lottery, and you're spending a lot of time and resources doing that. And does it work for maybe 1 out of 10,000 or 1 out of 100,000? Maybe. But,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the surefire way to build a business is to first understand the problem, and I would actually argue it has gotten easier to build a company, um, but it also sets the bar for proving the market early even higher, because you can build so fast. Like, that gives you the opportunity to really fully flesh something out first, and then say, "Okay, great. I'm gonna come back to you in 2 days with a working product, and
Mm-hmm.
see if this is real," right? Like,
Yeah.
that's that's something we never had. Like, we had to be like, "Okay, great. I'm gonna come back to you in 2 months with, like, a lightweight prototype, and see if
Yeah.
that's, like, what you want," right? Like, now it's
Right.
like, "Oh,
Right.
I can come back to you instantly." Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's a real opportunity. So, but don't shortcut the work. It's like AI it can revolutionize a lot of things, but it cannot revolutionize intellectual curiosity, and critical thinking, and like entrepreneurial insight.
Yeah.
And like, it can't, like, there's like a feeling you get as a founder of like, oh, this is the thing. You cannot
Yeah.
outsource that.
Well, what I like to think of it as like if you keep asking people and then you kind of know what they're going to say before they say it, then you probably got to enough.
Yes,
So,
that's a great point. Absolutely. That's actually why our original marketing message worked. Is because, like,
yeah.
we knew so deeply what people needed. We just said that, and they're like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, this is what we
Yeah.
need."
Yeah. Awesome. So, last question, anything you're working on now that's going to surprise us or signal in the market you're watching that's going to be a big deal?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 things. One is, agentic AI is very real and
Uh
here,
huh.
and it's something where 6 months ago I was like, "Yeah, I get it. I don't think it's quite ready." And now it's like it is here and ready
Yeah.
and happening. So, every single company right now should be, if they're not already, like, fully embracing how they transform their
Yeah.
engineering efforts internally to really fully embrace agentic
Mm-hmm.
AI, as well as other efforts like across the organization. But I
Yeah.
think engineering is going to be materially disrupted first, and we're thinking about, for our team, how does this really help supercharge them,
Yeah.
and how can we help them really just get some really exciting things out there faster. So, I'm personally really excited because we've got a lot of things we want to get to, and this is going to allow us to do it faster. And then the other thing I'll say is that, we have been in a situation for a long time where people have not been able to own their kind of the direction of their health, and that's
Mm.
materially changing. And so
Yeah.
now I think with AI, there's a big opportunity for people to partner with healthcare providers, and vice versa, for healthcare providers to partner with an educated patient in just a different way. And I think that it's not replacing healthcare providers, but I think that it's that patients can now be more educated up front.
Yeah.
So you can have like a collaborative discussion about what to do, hopefully, even with better data than
Yeah.
we ever had before. And I think that will ultimately lead to better health outcomes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Drew. This was fascinating. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks. Sorry. It's fun.